chosen one, lock your attention on this message right now. That quiet fire burning inside you, the one you've been trying to explain to people who don't understand, stop trying to put it out. The enemy has been working overtime this week for one reason and one reason only. He knows what's about to happen when you step into the room. It all changes now. The invisibility, the being overlooked, the seasons of watching everyone else get their moment. It ends here. But understand this. It is not ending because the world finally decided to notice you. It is ending because of what you have been doing in the dark when no one was watching. Think back to that moment this week when you almost quit. Maybe you were sitting alone, staring at your work, your craft, your calling, and the voice came telling you it was not good enough. That no one cared, that you had already missed your moment, and instead of walking away forever, you stayed. You showed up one more time, you created one more time, you believed one more time. You did not know it then, but that decision rearranged the atmosphere. You did not stumble onto this message by accident. The algorithm did not bring you here. God did. This is a divine appointment scheduled before the foundations of the earth, and you are standing at the edge of your most significant entrance. Stay with me until the very last second, because in the next few minutes, I am going to hand you the exact decree that cancels the assignment of obscurity over your life. I am going to walk you through the moment your preparation became a weapon so devastating the enemy cannot recover from it. And at the end, I'm going to give you a declaration that you will speak over yourself before you walk into every room from this day forward. Do not leave. Your future self, the version of you already living in the fullness of everything you have been praying for, is begging you to stay, because what comes next is the part that changes everything. I know what the last 72 hours have felt like. The atmosphere has not just been tense, it has been electric in a way that makes you nervous, like something enormous is pressing against a door, trying to get through. Maybe you have been feeling a strange restlessness this week that you cannot name, like your spirit knows something your mind has not caught up with yet. Maybe you have been rehearsing your moment in your head, imagining yourself walking into a space and commanding it, but then pulling back because a voice told you that you were not ready. Or maybe you woke up at 3:02 in the morning this week with your heart racing, not from fear, but from something that felt more like anticipation, like your purpose was shaking you awake. You feel like you have been standing in the wings for too long, like everyone else got their cue and walked out into the light while you've been waiting in the dark just off stage, wondering if your name was ever going to be called. And in that waiting, the enemy has been whispering a very specific lie. He has been telling you that the waiting is evidence of rejection, that the silence from the doors you knocked on means the door is permanently closed. He has been replaying that moment when you put yourself out there and it did not land the way you hoped. That presentation, that audition, that post, that conversation. He keeps looping it back, telling you that moment proved you were never meant to have the spotlight, that you should step aside and let the ones who were built for this take the stage. But I need you to hear what the scripture actually says about this moment. 1 Peter 5:6 says, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so that at the proper time he may exalt you." Listen to that promise. At the proper time, not at your anxious time, not at the time the enemy told you had already passed. At the proper time, God himself lifts you. The exaltation is not accidental, it is not random, it is scheduled, it is precise. And the preparation you went through, including every moment of silence, every rejection, every season where you refined your gift in rooms no one applauded you in, that was not punishment. That was God's hand, pressing you down into position so that when he lifts, nothing about your elevation can be explained by human logic. You are not still waiting because you were overlooked. You are still waiting because God has been loading the moment. The heaviness you feel right now is not the weight of being forgotten. It is the weight of readiness. It is your destiny reaching its full tension right before the release, like a bow drawn back as far as it will go, shaking with potential energy right before the arrow flies. You think the waiting was the wound, but let me reframe your reality right now. The waiting was the weapon. And you are about to steal the entire show. Because here's what nobody told you. The stage was never the problem. The spotlight was never the problem. You were never too much, never too loud, never too intense. You were just placed in rooms that weren't built for what you carry. And there is a profound difference between being out of place and being out of purpose. Think about what that really means. A river is not wrong for flowing with force. It is not guilty of being too powerful, too relentless, too determined to reach the ocean. The river is only a problem when someone tries to contain it in a cup. The cup was never the right vessel. And so it is with you. The limitations that others placed on you, the ceilings that felt like your reality, the walls that seemed permanent. None of those were verdicts from heaven. They were simply the wrong containers. They were spaces built by people who measured you by what they could comprehend, and you were always carrying something beyond their comprehension. That is not your failure. That is your distinction. Some messages don't just inform, they activate. If something stirred deep in your spirit just now, you may be ready to receive the Chosen One's blueprint. This sacred guide reveals the 8 divine patterns behind your calling, your suffering, and your destiny. It also comes with the full audiobook, so you can absorb it during prayer, rest, or quiet moments with God. And for those called to speak His truth, you'll also receive Activating Your Prophet Mantle, a powerful bonus ebook for those carrying a prophetic assignment. The link is in the first pinned comment, but only for a limited time. Now let's go deeper, because this is where most people get it wrong. They spend years auditioning for a role they were already cast in before they were born. Think about that. You have been rehearsing for a life that was already written. You have been trying to prove yourself worthy of a stage that heaven already reserved your name for. The exhaustion you've been feeling isn't weakness. It's what happens when someone anointed keeps shrinking themselves to fit spaces too small for their assignment. There is a weariness that is unique to the chosen. It is not the tiredness of someone who has done too little. It is the exhaustion of someone who has been doing too much of the wrong thing, bending, adjusting, compressing, reducing, all in the name of fitting in somewhere that was never designed to hold them. You have been pouring an ocean's worth of calling into a teacup of expectation, and the overflow you keep experiencing is not a malfunction. It is a sign. It is the evidence that you were built for more than the space you've been trying to inhabit. The pressure you feel is not punishment. It is preparation pressing against a container that can no longer hold you. And the question is not whether you will break free. The question is whether you will recognize the breaking as liberation rather than destruction. David understood this. Before anyone knew his name, before Goliath, before the throne, he was in a field talking to God and fighting lions that nobody else ever saw. His brothers thought he was irrelevant. His father didn't even call him to the table when Samuel came looking. And yet the very one they overlooked was the one the prophet anointed. The oil ran down the face of the one they forgot was in the room. And that tells you something critical. The people who dismissed you were never qualified to define you. Pause there for a moment, because that truth deserves more than a passing glance. David's father Jesse had other sons, older sons, taller sons, sons who looked more like kings by human standard. When Samuel arrived to anoint the next ruler of Israel, Jesse presented his sons like a lineup of credentials. And God looked at every single one of them and said, no, not him, not him, not him. 7 times heaven said no to what looked like the obvious choice. And then, almost as an afterthought, someone remembered there was a boy in the field, not even worth calling in from the pasture, not even worth mentioning until the prophet specifically asked, "Is this all of them?" And in that moment, God was making a statement that echoes across thousands of years directly into your life. He was declaring that the ones heaven selects are rarely the ones the world nominates. The overlooked are not afterthoughts to God. The overlooked are often His first thoughts, His chosen instruments, His most carefully prepared vessels. David had been in that field for years before Samuel arrived. And in those years of isolation, in those unwitnessed moments of courage when he faced the lion and the bear, God was not ignoring him. God was forging him. Every lion David faced in the silence of that wilderness was a rehearsal for the giant he would confront on a public stage. The hidden battles were not distractions from his destiny, they were the definition of it. And here is what that means for you. The years that felt wasted were not wasted. The seasons that felt invisible were not invisible to heaven. Every time you chose integrity when no one was watching, every time you pressed into God when the room was empty and the applause was absent, every time you kept your faith alive in the wilderness of waiting, you were being forged. You were being fashioned into something that cannot be manufactured by comfort or convenience. The formation that happens in obscurity is the foundation of everything that happens in prominence. And if you've been faithful in the field, you are more prepared for the stage than you realize. But here's where it goes deeper. It's not just that people dismissed you. It's that somewhere along the way you started to agree with their dismissal. You started to make yourself smaller, not because God told you to, but because the pain of being seen and rejected felt worse than the safety of staying hidden. And that agreement, that quiet, invisible agreement, became a ceiling over your destiny. This is one of the most subtle and devastating spiritual traps that exists, and it works precisely because it disguises itself as wisdom or maturity or even humility. When the world tells you that you are too much, there are two possible responses. The first is to reject the label and anchor yourself to what God says. The second is to internalize the label, to slowly begin building your identity around the smallness that others assign to you, until you no longer feel the grief of it because you've simply accepted it as truth. And for many people, for many gifted, anointed, uniquely called people, it is the second response that takes root. Not all at once, not dramatically, but quietly, incrementally, over years of accumulated rejection and unwitnessed tears, the agreement forms. You stop speaking up in certain rooms. You stop pursuing certain dreams. You start pre-editing your gifts before you offer them, cutting the most powerful parts out in advance so that no one can reject them before you do. And you call this self-awareness. You call it staying in your lane. But what it actually is, if you will let heaven hold a mirror to it for just a moment, is a covenant with smallness. And that covenant has a cost, not just for you. For everyone your assignment was meant to reach, and this leads us to something most people miss entirely. The enemy doesn't primarily attack your body or your circumstances first. He attacks your self-perception, because if he can get you to misidentify yourself, you will voluntarily walk away from everything God assigned to your hands. You'll call your anointing arrogance. You'll call your vision delusion. You'll call your fire pride. And in trying to be humble, you'll bury the very gift that was meant to set others free. This is the masterwork of the adversary, not the grand dramatic assault, but the slow, patient erosion of your spiritual identity. He does not need to destroy your gifts if he can convince you to disown them. He does not need to remove your calling if he can persuade you that your calling is actually a character flaw. Think about the language that has been used against the most powerfully gifted people throughout history. The prophets were called troublemakers. The visionaries were called dreamers as a form of mockery. The bold were called rebellious. The sensitive were called weak. The spiritually intense were called unstable. In every generation, the strategy has been the same. Take the marker of someone's assignment and reframe it as their greatest liability, because if the carrier of the gift believes the gift is actually a burden, a problem, an excess to be managed, they will manage it right out of existence. They will be their own most effective silencer. And hell celebrates not when you fall, but when you silence yourself. Not when you stumble, but when you stop walking altogether. Coming up in just a moment, the one shift that separates those who almost stepped into their greatness from those who actually did. Stay with me, because this is the part that breaks the cycle. But first, this has to land. There is a version of you that the enemy has been working overtime to prevent the world from seeing. Not because you're perfect, not because you have it all together, but because of what gets released when you finally stop apologizing for who you are and step fully into what you were made to be. Chains don't just break in your life when you rise, they break in the lives of everyone watching you rise. Your breakthrough has an audience that you cannot yet see. Let the weight of that settle in you for a moment. Your liberation is not a private matter. Your freedom is not just about you. There are people bound by the same chains that have held you, and they are waiting, consciously or not, for someone to demonstrate that those chains can be broken. There are people in rooms you haven't entered yet who need to see what a fully surrendered, fully activated, fully unashamed vessel of God's power looks like walking in the room. And you cannot show them that from behind the wall of your own hesitation. You cannot preach freedom from inside a prison of self-doubt. The world does not need another person who almost stepped into their greatness. The world has enough, almost stories. What is desperately, urgently, divinely needed is someone willing to go all the way, to take the step, speak the word, carry the fire into the dark spaces without waiting for permission from people who were never meant to grant it. Think of Esther. She didn't want the moment. She was afraid. She had every logical reason to stay quiet, stay safe, stay hidden behind the palace walls. But Mordecai said something to her that heaven is saying to you right now. He said, if you stay silent, deliverance will come from another place, but you will miss your moment. And what terrifies me about that sentence is this: God's will gets done with or without our participation. The question is whether you will be present for the chapter that was written with your name in it. Esther's fear was real, and her risk was legitimate. To approach the king without being summoned was potentially fatal. The law of the land made her silence the safest choice by every measurable human standard. But Mordecai did not appeal to her ambition. He did not minimize her fear. He simply reframed her situation with an eternal perspective. He told her that her position in the palace was not accidental, that the timing of her elevation was not coincidental, that the very thing she had tried to stay safe within was actually the platform she had been placed in for such a time as this. And then he issued what might be the most sobering invitation in all of Scripture. Come or don't come, but know this: the story will not be stopped. The deliverance will come. The only question is whether your name will be in the chapter or not. And Esther made a decision that was not comfortable, not painless, not safe by human calculation. She decided that her name would be in the chapter. She said, if I perish, I perish. And in that surrender, in that audacious, terrified, faith-soaked surrender, she walked into the moment that had always been waiting for her, and a nation was saved. Now, once you understand that, you're ready for this. Stealing the show has nothing to do with performance and everything to do with presence. The people who change rooms, who shift atmospheres, who make others feel something unexplainable when they walk in. They're not trying harder than everyone else. They are simply more fully themselves than everyone else. Authenticity at its deepest level is a spiritual force. When you stop fragmenting yourself to meet the expectations of people who were never your audience anyway, something aligns in you, something settles, and what settles in you begins to shake everything around you. This is the mystery of spiritual influence that no strategy or technique can manufacture. You have been in rooms with people who changed the atmosphere without saying a word. You have encountered someone whose simple presence made you feel simultaneously exposed and protected, convicted and loved, stirred and stilled. And you could not explain it by their credentials or their eloquence or their appearance. What you were encountering was someone who had stopped performing and started being. Someone who had ceased the exhausting labor of managing other people's perceptions and had simply arrived, fully, dangerously, peacefully arrived, as the complete and unreduced version of who God made them. That is not a personality trait. That is not a confidence hack. That is the fruit of a soul that has settled its agreement with its own identity. And the reason it shakes rooms is because the spirit within those rooms recognizes something real when it enters. People are starved for authenticity. They are hungry for someone who is not editing themselves in real time, not calibrating their expression to the lowest common denominator, not pre-shrinking before the world has the chance to shrink them. When you show up whole, you give everyone in the room permission to consider what wholeness might feel like for them. And that, quietly and powerfully, is ministry. But let me challenge you with something, because this is the part no one wants to hear. Some of you are not stuck because of your enemies. Some of you are not delayed because of your past. You are in a holding pattern right now because of a comfort zone that has been disguised as contentment. You've been calling it peace when it's actually avoidance. You've been calling it waiting on God when God has already given you the green light, and you're still sitting at the intersection looking both ways, afraid to move. There is a kind of spiritual stillness that is holy and necessary, the kind born of deep trust, unhurried obedience, and genuine communion with God's timing. And then there is a kind of stillness that is fear, wearing a prayer shawl. Fear that has learned to speak the language of faith so fluently that even you can no longer tell the difference. It says things like, "I'm just being patient," or "I'm waiting for confirmation," or "I don't want to get ahead of God," all of which can be genuinely holy in certain seasons. But in other seasons, the same phrases become the most sophisticated form of self-protection available to a spiritual person. Because if you frame your fear as reverence, no one can challenge it. If you dress your avoidance in the language of surrender, it becomes almost untouchable. But God is not confused by the vocabulary. He sees the root beneath the words, and He is not angry with you for it. But He is inviting you, with all the gentleness and all the urgency of a father who knows what waits on the other side, to stop sitting at the green light and drive. And what's coming next will likely surprise you. It always does, because the hidden thing, the real thing underneath all of this, is not fear of failure. Most people who carry what you carry aren't afraid of failing. They are afraid of succeeding. They are afraid of what changes when they finally arrive. Who they'll have to leave behind. What version of themselves will have to die for the new one to live. Success at the level you're called to requires a death that most people aren't willing to walk through, and so they stay in the preparation forever, never taking the stage, never delivering the performance heaven choreographed them for. This is a truth that rarely gets preached because it is uncomfortable in a different way than the usual discomfort. We expect the enemy to attack us. We expect the road to be hard. We have theological frameworks for suffering and resistance. But few of us have a framework for the grief of elevation. Few of us are prepared for the holy grief of becoming who we were always meant to be, because that becoming is never without loss. The version of you that was comfortable in smallness must be released. The identity you built around your limitations, around what you told yourself you couldn't do or couldn't be or didn't deserve, that identity, familiar as it is, must be laid down. Relationships that were built on your diminished version may not survive your expanded one, and that is real grief. That is legitimate loss, and honoring that loss does not mean retreating from the growth. It means walking into it with eyes open, acknowledging what it costs while choosing it anyway, because the assignment on the other side of that death is worth every grief it demands. Jesus said it plainly, "Unless a grain of wheat falls into the ground and dies, it remains alone, but if it dies, it produces much fruit." The dying is not the end of the story. The dying is the condition of the harvest, and if you will not release the lesser version, you cannot receive the greater one. Heaven is not trying to destroy you. Heaven is trying to multiply you. But multiplication at this level begins with a seed's willingness to stop being a seed. Here's the part you probably didn't expect. The thing that has been blocking you isn't the enemy. It isn't your trauma. It isn't even the people who betrayed you. It's your unresolved relationship with your own greatness. Deep inside, there is a version of you that you never fully made peace with, the version that is powerful, undeniable, world-changing. And something in you still doesn't fully believe that version is real. So every time breakthrough comes close, something inside you finds a reason to slow down, to second guess, to disqualify yourself before anyone else can. And until that shifts, until you genuinely reconcile with the magnitude of what God placed inside you, you will keep almost stepping into the spotlight and pulling back at the last second. This is the final frontier of spiritual formation for the chosen. You can overcome external opposition. You can survive betrayal and loss and seasons of devastating silence. You can endure the wilderness and emerge refined. But this reckoning with the fullness of who you are, this is the battle that happens entirely within the territory of your own soul. And it cannot be won by striving. It cannot be conquered by effort or discipline alone. It is won in the place of surrender, in the quiet moment when you finally stop arguing with God about what He put in you and simply receive it. When you stop saying, "but me," and start saying, "yes, me," when the person you have been the hardest on, the person you've been the most reluctant to believe in, is finally the person you let God love fully and without reservation, when you stop making His investment in you a debate and simply become the return on it. The prophet Jeremiah tried to argue his way out of his assignment. He said, "I do not know how to speak. I am only a child." And God's response was not a negotiation. It was a declaration. He said, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." Do you see what God refused to do? He refused to let Jeremiah's self-perception overrule divine foreknowledge. He refused to allow a human being's opinion of their own inadequacy to nullify a heaven-authored appointment. And He is refusing that same nullification in your life right now. Your doubts about yourself are real. Your feelings of inadequacy are real. But they are not more real than what God knew about you before you took your first breath. And the invitation of this moment, right here, right now, is to let what God knows about you be louder than what fear tells you. But this is where the story changes. This is the moment, right here, in this message, in this breath, in this decision you're making about whether to believe what God said or continue rehearsing what the world said. The show doesn't go on without you. The world is waiting. Heaven is leaning forward. And the most powerful thing you could do tonight is simply decide that the version of you that shrinks is no longer welcome in your own story. That decision does not require you to have everything figured out. It does not require you to feel ready, because the feeling of readiness is often a reward that comes after the leap, not before it. It does not require the absence of fear. It simply requires the presence of a yes. A raw, imperfect, trembling yes to the God who called you, who equipped you, who has been patiently and persistently drawing you toward this moment for longer than you know. Say yes to the stage that was built before you understood why you needed one. Say yes to the gifts that have made people uncomfortable, because the discomfort they felt was the confrontation of their own unlived potential. Say yes to the fire inside you that has never fully gone out, no matter how many storms tried to extinguish it. Because that fire was not placed there by circumstance or personality. It was placed there by God, and it will not go out because it was never yours to begin with. Place your hand over your heart and speak this with me, because these words are not just declarations, they are agreements with heaven. I release every label that was placed on me by people who could not see my purpose. I break every agreement I made with smallness, with fear, and with the lie that I am too much or not enough. I receive the fullness of what God assigned to my life before I was born. I am not behind. I am not forgotten. I am not forgotten. I am not too late. I am in my season, and my season is now. I step onto the stage that heaven built for me, and I take my place without apology, without hesitation, and without looking back. I steal the show, not for my glory, but for His. And every gift, every dream, every assignment inside me is activated, aligned, and released. Starting today, let those words resonate in the chambers of your spirit, because something moves in the spiritual realm when a person speaks in alignment with what God already decreed. When you declare what heaven affirms, you are not manufacturing something new. You are agreeing with something ancient, something that was spoken over your life in the councils of eternity before time had a name. The declarations you just spoke are not wishful thinking. They are the recovery of stolen territory. They are the reclamation of an identity that was always yours and that was only temporarily misplaced in the fog of other people's limitations and your own accumulated fear. Keep speaking them. Write them down. Let them be the first words your spirit hears in the morning and the last words that settle over you at night. because what you agree with consistently will eventually shape what you inhabit. And you were created to inhabit greatness, not for the applause of it, not for the elevation of your name, but for the demonstration of God's faithfulness to every person who watches you walk in what He promised. If this message moved something in you, don't let it stop here. Share it with someone who needs to remember who they are. Leave a word in the comments, even just a single word that describes what's shifting in you right now. The community reading these comments might find exactly what they needed in what you write. And if you're ready to go deeper into understanding why God chose you, why the road was hard, and what He's unlocking next, the link in the first pinned comment is your next step. You didn't find this message by accident. Nothing about your path has been accidental. Now walk in it.